So let's hear Professor Jiang break down why the Strait of Hormuz is actually so important.
Narrow, okay? This small area, guys, it's called the Strait of Hormuz, right? And it's important because it's really the center of the world. This one area is the nexus, the pivot of the world. Let me explain why. First of all, from the GCC, you have 20% of all the world's oil flowing through this narrow strait. Where does it go, guys? It goes through Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, China, Japan. India depends on 60% of its oil from this area. China depends on 40%. Japan, 75%. Prime Minister Takeichi of Japan has said that, listen, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, we will run out of oil in about 8-9 months. The entire Japanese economy would collapse in 8-9 months if the Strait of Hormuz were to close. And guess what? The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? So we can expect that the entire global economy will suffer greatly over the next few months. All right, so that's point number one. Point number two is, okay, so the GCC sends oil across the Strait of Hormuz, and what do they get back in return? Food, guys. All right, so people don't appreciate the GCC, but it is really the linchpin.
The GCC is the Gulf Coast countries. Okay, so it's all of those countries that are on the west side of that Strait of Hormuz, essentially. You got Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Saudi, and so on. Just wanted to make that clear.
American empire. Because what is the American empire? The American empire is the petrodollar. All right? The idea of the petrodollar is this. The US dollar is worth nothing. It's only valuable if people want it. But the GCC says that if you want oil from us, you have to pay us in US dollars. Okay? Then that is the basis of the value of the US dollar. So if the GCC collapses, the American economy and the American empire both collapse at the same time.
So I do think there's something worth pointing out here, because what he kind of zoomed over the fact that Saudi Arabia and all of these countries in the region, they sell their oil for dollars. But that was an arrangement that came about, right? So like, why would they only use dollars to accept for their oil? Well, this is what happened right after 1976. You had the end of the gold standard in the United States. And then they came up with this petrodollar system where essentially the United States has offered to protect the strait and to protect that region with military might in order for them to continue to have protection of all of their resources. And in return for that, you are going to you're going to sell your oil only to other countries in US dollars. So that was kind of the arrangement that was made with the US. It was never official. This was just kind of something that occurred throughout that time.
The problem, though, is that GCC is an artificial construct of empire. It does not exist naturally. Why? Because there's no food, there's no oil, no water. Okay, guys? No food, no water. So these cities are able to grow in the millions because all these petrodollars flowing in. If you close off the Strait of Hormuz, there's no food coming in, right? They're all going to starve. How much food does the GCC get from overseas? 80%. 80% of all the food it consumes comes from overseas, that it imports. It doesn't grow by itself, it imports. All right? So the Strait of Hormuz is really key. And again, the Iranians will close it in order to strangle the global economy and therefore bankrupt the American empire. All right? Second thing you will notice is these mountains. These mountains is what we call Iran. All right, this is Iran. This is GCC. Okay, this is not a fair matchup, right? Because these are mountains. And what can you do in mountains? Well, you can hide rocket bases. You can hide drone bases. You can hide missiles. And that's the entire Iranian offensive strategy, all right? From here, they can hide missiles and drones from which to attack the GCC. And what are they attacking? They're attacking three things, right? They're attacking American military bases. American military bases. That's number one. Okay? Is it possible for the Americans to defend against these attacks? The answer is no. It's not. It's the silliest thing in the world. You have all these bases in the Middle East where you cannot defend them against the Iranians. That's kind of strange. Okay, that's number one. Number two is oil and energy. How hard is it to blow up an oil field with a drone? Not hard at all. Can you defend these oil fields? No, you cannot. All right? Number three, and this is most important, is water. Okay? You guys don't know this, but the GCC has little access to fresh water. So the only way that it can produce water is what we call desalination plants, okay? These factories that take salt water and then through electrical chemical process, turn it into fresh water for the population to use. 60% of the water supply in HGC comes from desalination plants, okay? 60%. Is it hard to blow up a desalination plant using a drone? The answer is, it's very easy. You understand? Okay? So you have this absurd situation where Iran is a mountain fortress where it can hide its offensive capacity, and the GCC is just this desert, this flat desert, and it is exposed to attack, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So I think that this was a very, very great breakdown of the real vulnerabilities here. And he goes throughout this clip here, and he talks about where basically this whole thing becomes a game of chicken. Because what happens here is Iran can technically just completely demolish the Gulf Coast countries immediately. They could just strike their desalination plants. They could just strike their oil facilities, and then it's over. I mean, those people there you can't survive that much without water. Okay, water's a big thing. We talked about this yesterday. And like, how do you really resupply water? I don't know that you can really easily just like help with that. If someone wanted to help, what are you going to do? You know, you're talking about millions and millions of people that are in that region that would not have water. That doesn't take very long to become a very huge problem. So what's happening here is like, this isn't necessarily a matter of who has the military advantage in that region in particular, but it's like, well, who's actually going to do the thing that leads to a much bigger problem where someone else is going to have to come and, you know, play Big Brother or whatever.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so, just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.